Compass Mining is your trusted partner in Bitcoin mining. Whether you're investing in one machine or thousands, our customizable solutions are tailored to meet your needs. We are your experts in Bitcoin mining, offering a platform where individuals and businesses can purchase hardware, host machines, and access a range of ancillary Bitcoin mining services. We also specialize in large-scale site development and data center operations. Discover more at compassmining.io and see how we can power your success today. Hey miners, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, the official home of power mining analysis. First things first, happy Thanksgiving to all of our American followers and people celebrating around the world. Super exciting year for Bitcoin. We obviously have a lot to be thankful for. That's what we're going to be covering in today's video, talking about the global game theory that we're seeing play out in terms of Bitcoin adoption and what seems to be this orange pill moment that the entire world or globe is going through in front of our eyes. There's a lot of excitement in the space. We're going to be unpacking that, plus miner specific news in today's presentation. Before we do, take a second, smash the like button, guys. Big help to myself and the channel. Anthony loves it. If you're not already subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to join and let us know in the comments section below when you think Bitcoin's going to crack through the $100,000 psychological wall and how you're feeling in terms of the Bitcoin mining stocks heading into 2025. Now, with that being said, let's get into today's video. Well, there we go, Anthony. Thursday morning, markets are closed today in light of American Thanksgiving, but we've got a lot to talk about on the agenda here. No shortage of news, as we say in the Bitcoin mining space. So first and foremost, how are you feeling over there, Anthony? You see any turkeys running around in the UK, or do you guys do the Thanksgiving thing over there?
No, we do Christmas Day, which is about a month's time. So we'll be having turkey for Christmas Day. No, Thanksgiving is an American holiday, and best wishes to all our American friends and colleagues over the water.
There you go. That's when we all ran away from the UK. We had our pilgrim party over here. Happy Thanksgiving to all of our American followers. Interesting chart we found here, Anthony, on the price of Bitcoin over the last 14, 15 years, taken on Thanksgiving Day each day. Just tremendous to look back over the last decade and a half, I guess, in terms of Bitcoin development. I saw the first 3 years there, basically up until 2012, you could get Bitcoin in the double-digit range, $12, under 20 bucks, and then that tremendous jump in 2013. But looking back on this history, it's hard not to notice patterns, Anthony, especially with this 4-year cycle we've seen really starting to come to fruition in November here.
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at 2013, that was a massive jump there from 2012's high. But then you go to 2017 and it's a 10x from 2013. And you go to 2021 and it's an 8x from there. So it bodes well for 2025 as we go into this next sort of bull cycle, if we're following the bull cycle. And believe you me, there's enough proper good news this year to back up a bull cycle in 2025.
There certainly is. That was another good point you bring up. As I was looking through this, I said, is history going to repeat? Is it going to rhyme? But I kept thinking the ETF and this strategic reserve are just X factors that weren't there. However, if you do look back to the last cycle, 2018, so this would essentially be comparative to 2022, 4 years prior. You can see it was in the $4,000 range, then essentially doubled up to $7,100 the next year. Doubled and a half again up to 18,000, and then essentially a triple from there. Now, if you look at that same pattern this cycle, you see 16,000 essentially doubling up to 37, then a 2.5 times up to 95 where we're now. If history does repeat, Anthony, we may be looking at $250,000, $300,000 Bitcoin if this pattern continues, and that's excluding the ETF factor or the Trump Bitcoin reserve game theory that we're going to talk about.
Absolutely. Many advocates have been saying around the 250,000 by the end of next year. And, even Michael Saylor's been very, very bullish on this, and many of the big analyst firms now who are starting to be proactive in the Bitcoin space in terms of putting their information out there. They've been suggesting 250, 300,000 isn't a stretch at all. And you're quite right. Looking at previous cycles, that's where it would probably end up getting to. And as I say, in these previous cycles, we've had bits of bad news going through. There's been a lot of FUD about Bitcoin. There's been also the issues with FTX, which impacted the price, the fact that China banned in 2021 Bitcoin mining. We're still hearing people recently say that it's a scam. We're starting to see that change now. We're starting to see Bitcoin news so regular on all these the global news programs and more like Fox and CNBC and Bloomberg. It's literally every 10 minutes they're mentioning Bitcoin or they're getting someone on the program to talk through Bitcoin. So yeah, this bodes really well for next year.
Yeah, I didn't tell you, Anthony. I got to wrap up quickly here. I'm on Bloomberg in about 10 minutes. They have me on as the morning Thanksgiving analyst. No, I'm just kidding. Now, moving along to the stock charts, this is what everybody is talking about on Bloomberg. The share price growth in these miners is just extravagant. We talk about the fact these are leverage plays on Bitcoin. We get a lot of flack for it, Anthony. I don't know how many comments I've seen saying, where do you guys get off saying these are 2, 3, 4 times leverage plays? Well, yesterday proves that in a big way. We had IREN coming out with Q1 earnings. We were fortunate enough to have Kent Draper on the program directly following earnings. Kent's phenomenal spokesman for the company. And lo and behold, IREN closed up just shy of 30% on yesterday's session, leading the Bitcoin mining sector. But realistically, many of these companies were up 10, 15, 20%. Just a phenomenal day and exactly what investors like us in this sector wait for.
Yeah, it was a great day for IREN. And not the first time. We mentioned this a few days ago, actually, that, when we talk about shares getting upwards of 30% or more, IREN have had days like this before where the share price has really moved. And if you remember back to May, June time when information started to come out about we're not going to be at 20 exahash, we're going to be at 30 exahash by the end of the year. Good news stories like that rocketed. There was a lot of good information on the earnings the day before yesterday. The talk about, a hyperscaler that's now interested, a $1 trillion hyperscaler. Well, it narrows it down to 4 or 5 companies because there's only about 7 companies that have got a $1 trillion market capitalization. So, and you can discount some of those because they're not hyperscalers, but you've only got 4 or 5 names on the list. So that was interesting to hear that live on an earnings call. Yesterday's volume 44 million as well. So average volume 16 million shares a day. So nearly 3 times the normal volume. So a lot of interest in IREN at the moment. I know a lot of analysts from the Wall Street have given price predictions, significantly higher from the share price at the moment. Bear in mind, they have currently the most efficient mining fleet, and they are attracting using market rate. So no PPAs in place in the Childress site in Texas. They're using the rate, and they're probably having to curtail when the rate spikes. So the rate changes quite regularly. So they'll be taking advantage when the rates are really low. And using market rate, you can get some rates that are really, really low. So they'll be using that advantage going into 2025. Producing Bitcoin at probably one of the lowest rates that we'll see across all the mining companies, because that efficiency of 15 joules when they've installed this next 10 exahash, which we'll get an update on probably the next 3 or 4 weeks from the company, having met their 31 exahash target. Ken wouldn't give a date, but he wasn't saying anything other than it's going to be there in a few weeks' time. So, and actually, if you look on Twitter today, you've got IREN with videos of literally all the mining rigs at location already. So you can see massive amounts of pallets with all these new mining machines on there. They'll be getting installed over the next few weeks, get that 31 exahash operational. And with IREN, you tend to find out that the operating hash rate is generally very, very close to their energized hash rate. So they don't leave anything off the table. So 2025 is going to be a really good year. Bringing that target of 50 exahash forward by 6 months also was great news as well. We're just talking about the bull market where the Bitcoin prices be. You want to get as much hash rate on the market as possible. global hash rate at the moment between 6 and 700 exahash, depending on what time of day you have a look at the chart. So if they've got 50 exahash by early next year, that's going to give them sort of like 8% of the global production. And when you consider other companies like Marathon and CleanSpark will also have similar production, it means that, you're going to be ending up with 30, 40% of the global production of Bitcoin mining happening in North America, which is pretty much where Donald Trump wants it to be. He wants Bitcoin to be American. He's built his cabinet around certain posts there that are very pro Bitcoin. So again, it's just news about all the positivity.
Yeah, great remarks there, Anthony. It's interesting to see how consolidated or condensed the mining is getting in West Texas. Now, one interesting point from Kent's interview last night is he talked about the generation capacity coming on in Texas, saying new gigawatts are coming online, well outpacing the domestic demand. So that obviously bodes very well for Bitcoin miners, as additional capacity should lead to lower prices if supply and demand economics work as we would think. And the one other point I wanted to throw in here in relation to the hyperscaler comment, that was obviously a big note from Dan on the conference call. I saw this meme, Anthony, hilarious in my opinion, so I wanted to throw it in the presentation as well, as I'm starting to get a lot of Amazon deliveries myself for the holidays. With that being said, other miners on the list here, I know we've got a market cap chart we can look at as well. 10 miners now in the $1 billion club. Anything you're seeing here that stands out or maybe peculiar in your opinion, Anthony?
No, no. I mean, there's a. I mean, obviously, Marathon Digital, the sheer size of it, what it's done recently in terms of um, processing that convertible note at zero interest, getting about $980 million after expenses or costs, and then using that to buy Bitcoin. That really set the market, in the right direction there, and that share price has rocketed. I mean, the share price beginning of last week was $18, and now it's at $27. So that's effectively a 50% rise in a week, up 7% yesterday. So their market capitalization certainly above the highs now that we saw in 2021. So it took, the best part of 3 years for Marathon to recover from the 2021 highs. Core Scientific in second place there with a market cap just under 5 billion. That's expected. I mean, when a company's got a HPC contract that's going to deliver over 500 million net profit a year, even the basic analysts will understand that, from a price earnings perspective and giving that a ratio of 15, that's going to be 7.5 billion in terms of market cap, and then add on the fact that you've got a Bitcoin mining company, and let's give them another 2.5 billion for that there. That gives them a 10 billion market capitalization, currently at 5. So there's probably plenty of way to go there. Riot coming in third place at 4 billion. CleanSpark were higher than Cause and Riot earlier this year. They were a $4 billion company back in March. That share price has sort of retreated from there, but it's starting this last week or so, starting to recover. I expect better things to happen with CleanSpark over next week. Their results, I think, will come out probably in January because they're going to be full year results. And when you issue full year results, you get a little bit longer because they have to be audited. So be interested to see their results. Last year, they came out in early January, so we'll be expecting a similar sort of period for their results to come out this year. Wolf and Hut, you look at those two stocks there, they're above IREN at the moment, and in terms of hash rate, nowhere near the hash rate that IREN have got. So Wolf are operating about 8 exahash. Yes, they've got a small HPC project at the moment, but you've got to be thinking that there's a HPC deal going to be announced very shortly to quantify that valuation of just under 3 billion. And the same with Hut. We had Sue on the podcast recently. She articulated 430 megawatts had been set aside and as a client imminently about to be announced. So you don't start talking those numbers unless you're really, really confident that's going to happen. Their market cap has increased, literally threefold this year since Asher took over back on the 7th of February. So, and then you've got IREN, whose market cap's, very, very similar to Hut and to Wolves. but IREN have got, the big play in terms of hash rate, efficient mining machines. Cypher, another one over 2 billion. Their market cap looks like that's got priced in some sort of a HPC announcement, and we've seen plenty of announcements from Cypher in recent weeks regarding purchasing new sites ready for Bitcoin mining or for HPC, and the likelihood is a lot of these new sites will be HPC orientated. And Bitdeer joins the $2 billion club as well, and they've had an enormous amount of updates in recent weeks there. And we all we bated breath when these Seal Miner 2 and Seal Miner 3 machines roll out with the efficiency they're bringing, and very, very close in terms of comparables to the Bitmain's most efficient machines.
Now, before we get into the $1 billion club, Anthony, I did want to make a few comments about maybe the top tier, we'll call them. So Core's market cap, you had said you figure this will become the largest market cap company in the sector within the next year or 2 years. Do you still think that statement is accurate based on Marathon's new strategy, employing some of that MicroStrategy-esque feel in the company?
I think the potential for Cores is to go significantly high. And don't bear in mind when I talk about those P multiples, they're quite reserved for this type of industry. You could argue 20 or 25 would be a more appropriate multiple to use. And if you start using, 25, that would give them a market capitalization of, heading way over $15 billion. Bear in mind, there's still a sizable miner. They've still got over 20 exahash of mining. Yes, Marathon will have 50 exahash of mining, but Core Scientific tend to mine far more efficiently than Marathon Digital do in terms of how much they're paying out to mine a Bitcoin in terms of cash costs. The Marathon strategy, we only heard about this in the last few weeks about the buying Bitcoin. So this has, changed that position. And, it depends whether they're going to use totally the Michael Saylor strategy
Sure.
of raising more debt in the future to buy more Bitcoin. That could sway the balance. We've seen that what's happened to MicroStrategy over the last year and a half in terms of their share price rocketing. But I think Cores is sitting really well in terms of where I see value at the moment in that group of 10 miners above $1 billion.
Compass Mining makes Bitcoin mining accessible to everyone. Start mining in as little as 48 hours with our turnkey hardware, online and mining directly to your Bitcoin wallet within 2 business days. Find out more at compassmining.io and get started now. And one other question for you, Anthony. CleanSpark you brought up. This one is a little peculiar to me because they've increased their hash rate tremendously this year. Bitcoin price and hash price has gone up tremendously this year. Their HODL has gone up tremendously this year. It seems they're doing most things right. Strong operator. However, the share price is still trading about half of where we saw earlier in the year, that $24, $25 range. I think they're in the $13, $14 range now. What is holding them back? Is it simply this resistance to HPC? Is it the private jet? What is going on with this company that's holding them back right now?
Yeah, I'm not sure the private jet's holding them back. That wasn't a massive expense. It was a fun update there. I do wonder, when companies start going out and having to highlight, the purchasing jets were like that. But I think there's a lot of short interest around CleanSpark at the moment. There's a lot of short interest across a lot of the miners, but CleanSpark looks to be, I looked the other day, I think it was at 20%, the short interest there. So we might see, in terms of share movement, CleanSpark share could take off very quickly over this next week or so. So, you and me, we've both been buying, small amounts of shares to add to the portfolio recently in CleanSpark. It was nearly $25 back in March. It had grown effectively from a $600 million company in October 2023 to a $4 billion company in March 2024. So in a space of 6 to 7 months, it had like literally 7x in terms of market capital size. They've used the ATM strategy really well to grow. They've got an efficient fleet that can only be beaten by IREN at the moment. And so, everything they're doing is right. They have a great cash cost to mine Bitcoin. We haven't got their recent quarter updates. I've just articulated that will come out in January, but I don't expect them to be any worse than their peer miners. I think they run a good operation there. Very impressed with their, with Zach at the front there. And yes, they're at pure play at the moment, but Zach in Amsterdam did say if he got a phone call from CoreWeave offering 500 megawatts of hosted HPC, he'd be making sure they have sufficient capacity to take that deal on there. He was very complimentary towards Core Scientific. I think CleanSpark again, like Core Scientific, they could certainly move higher in terms of market capitalization this year, over this next year, because they do run really well. They're going to 37 exahash by the end of December, and then looking to get to 50 exahash in 2025. So
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of good things coming out from a lot of these miners in that top box there, and that's why they're in the top box, because there's lots of good news updates about them.
And I was going to say, we've seen from IREN the under promise, over deliver strategy. I would be very surprised if that 37 exahash doesn't end up being 40 by year end here with CleanSpark. That's another one I have circled on my watch list, Anthony. Again, worth another look, you guys. Now, moving along, you mentioned Wolf and Cypher essentially giving us everything but the client's name in these most recent interviews. So those are ones to watch as well. Now, moving along into the $1 billion club, what are you seeing here, Anthony?
Yeah, I think I suppose if we had to highlight one share that hasn't really garnered any momentum in recent months, that's Bitfarms. Yes, there was, obviously they had the issue with Riot buying effectively 20% of the company, and a lot of people, were disappointed with that process. But that's now been agreed now to be as, to stay as it is now until 2026. So that gives Bitfarms the opportunity to, get on with its own business. But I think failing to meet that hash target back in June, which was 12 exahash, and we're getting on for December now, and we might be getting an update at the end of November with the November update to say they've reached 12, but that's like 5 months later than expected. And we've already talked about when IREN highlighted they were going from 20 to 30, their share price absolutely rocketed. The market wants to see good updates, and equally, the market will punish you if you don't provide those updates they're expecting. I mean, operationally, I can't fault Bitfarms. They effectively top of the table at the moment in terms of what they do monthly. So they do get the most Bitcoin from their hash rate compared to all the miners on that list there. So they are in first place, followed by Hive. And again, you look at Hive at 500,000 there. Their progress hasn't from a shareholder perspective hasn't been as quick as they would have liked. But what Hive have done, they haven't gone down the route of using the ATM anywhere near as much as those groups of miners in the top half of that board. And they've done it a lot more organically. So they're growing miners, buying 1,000 miners, 2,000 miners every month, changing the fleet. Now they've got this big site in Paraguay, close to the Bitfarm site that they're now building through, and that'll be ready probably about this time next year. So that'll get them close to then 13 exahash. And then finally, on from DMG point of view, they had a nice increase in their hash rate recently. It's now at 1.65, looking to get that closer to 2 with more machines ordered. And we can see their market capitalization has been growing, quite nicely over the last few months.
Yes, they most definitely have. Obviously, these big moves in terms of the stock share price are also having big impacts on our Miner Madness competition. So this one's just about two-thirds done. We've still got the month of December to wrap up Q4 here. A lot of movement on the leaderboard, Anthony. So maybe we'll start off with the regular leaderboard. Hut 8 is dominating the top positions now. I think the top 5 people all have Hut 8 as their first pick. We're starting to see a lot more Marathon and IREN in that top contention as well. Current leader as of yesterday's close, Investment Revolution up 99% so far during the competition in essentially 2 months worth of trading. Then we move over to the analyst leaderboard, Anthony. You and I are continuing to hold first and second place, both in the top 100, but nowhere close to that top 10 group. And obviously, a lot of activity still yet to play out in this competition.
Yeah, there's a lot of activity. I mean, look at now that like you say, Hut's share performance since the 1st of October, I think it's up 120%, maybe even higher than that, maybe 130% now. I think I put out a tweet yesterday showing that was significantly the best performing stock over that period that we started the competition, followed by Canaan, who are a mining company, and they also are a supplier of mining equipment. So they're probably the third largest supplier after the likes of Bitmain and MicroBT. But you've also got some of the other big names up there. You've got Cypher up there. You've got Riot up there. You've got Marathon coming into that group now because of the way that's performed over the last week or so. So it's great to see the leaderboard there. Look at that total return after literally 8 weeks from the top from top person there, Investment Revolution. That's 99% return. Hopefully that individual will have put some of his own investment into those stocks there and watch it ride there. And looking at the Bitcoin price of 142, well, who knows where the Bitcoin price might end at the end of the year. We'll like to see it into six figures. The average, I think, for the competition was something like about 107,000. So let's see where that ends up there. But yeah, I mean, a great leaderboard at the moment.
It certainly is. And if Bitcoin's able to get up to 142,000 US in the next month, I will happily let Investment Revolution win the competition. We've also received a number of swag boxes, gift boxes, giveaways from the miners. So, really looking good in terms of pricing here. Now, the next portion of the discussion, we wanted to talk about this global adoption, the global Bitcoin orange pill moment we seem to be witnessing in front of our eyes here. We've been lucky enough to have Dennis Porter on the channel multiple times, really built a great friendship with him and helping to work on the Mining Disrupt project. He comes out with a statement saying, I was wrong. There will be more strategic Bitcoin reserve legislation coming much faster than I anticipated. December will be huge. Now, of all the people in the world, Dennis Porter has one of the best pulses on Bitcoin policy of anyone we've hosted on the channel, Anthony. Then British HODL comes out saying, I expect 3 to 7 more strategic Bitcoin reserve bills announced from countries before January 20th presidential inauguration of Donald Trump. The Hunger Games have begun. They have months to front run America. So, what we're seeing starting to develop here is really this global game theory, not only as companies start to adopt Bitcoin, which we'll talk about in a second, but now countries. On top of those announcements, we now have some very prominent members of the BRIC alliance, so the Brazil, Russia, India, China alliance, with 3 of those members now coming out very pro Bitcoin or favoriting Bitcoin. So I'll let you walk through some of these big announcements, Anthony, but really starting to see this global adoption pick up in a big way.
Yeah, we're just getting daily more good updates after another, and the strategic Bitcoin reserve bill just been introduced into Brazil. You've got the likes of Putin now as classified, or Russia is going to classify Bitcoin as a property and also other crypto assets as property, and that'll exempt them from VAT. So that'll be saving a lot of individuals any tax when they purchase Bitcoin, and that's expected to occur really shortly. So we're expecting Putin signature to happen really quickly. And yeah, it's just one thing after another. I mean, El Salvador were the first to do this, and we've seen a lot of interest from other countries. Especially those countries where inflation has been really high. The likes of Turkey. There's interest in Turkey. I remember going on holiday to Turkey 3 or 4 years ago, and I could have actually bought things at a shop on the beach using Bitcoin and about 4 other cryptocurrencies. I'd struggle to do that in the UK, but in Turkey, they had many outlets that would take Bitcoin and cryptocurrency to purchase things. So again, countries like Turkey ahead of the game compared to other, European and more, some of the bigger economic countries in the world. But great to see Brazil. Brazil, one of the most populated countries in the world. That'll be a big tick in the box there. And we know where Trump's views are because we've seen Trump live at the Nashville conference there. So everything's really positive towards Bitcoin. I've yet to see any bad news. There's no other FTX stories coming up that I can think of. So yeah, the 2025 looks really good.
It certainly does. It's interesting. Bitcoin is the one thing in common all of these nations and leaders have. You can see such differences in policy and governing the wars, the conflicts, but all of them looking at Bitcoin as a potential solution. Another interesting meme from Bitcoin Archive essentially saying, okay, China, Russia has now legalized Bitcoin. What's your next move? China coming out and saying they're about to unban Bitcoin. So you mentioned in the last bull run, one of the negative catalysts was China banning Bitcoin. Now in this bull run, we may have them unbanning Bitcoin on the complete other end of the spectrum. So with that being said, Anthony, we've covered a lot in today's presentation. The final point I wanted to talk about is just a couple corporate updates. So Michael Saylor obviously presenting to the Microsoft board this month or in December. So talking about that orange pill moment. Also getting some reports that other hyperscalers and blue chip companies like Amazon, for example, may be starting to look at getting Bitcoin on balance sheet, which actually makes sense. If you think about these HPC hyperscaler relationships, they probably are sitting in a lot of meetings with these Bitcoin mining companies and starting to give it a lot more thought than maybe they would have a year ago.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And as I say, it's all one-way traffic at the moment. We've seen the Bitcoin price recover from where it dropped to on earlier in the week when it went down to like $91,000. Now it's heading back up towards $96,000. So we're still waiting to get through that $100,000 wall, and I think it's just a case of when now.
It certainly is. So, with that being said, you guys, happy Thanksgiving. Some great ideas to think about while you're enjoying your turkey tonight. The two slides I'll leave you with. First, we are still so early, you guys. We have now surpassed the same number of users in terms of Bitcoin adoption as the internet in 1999. Look where that ended up a few decades later. And finally, from HODL15, one of our favorite accounts, currently $7 trillion with a T that are sitting in market funds or other equities that could potentially start to flow into Bitcoin. So, yes, the world seems to be adopting Bitcoin. Yes, we're seeing favorable policy and price action in Bitcoin. However, we are still very early, and this is just scratching the surface of what we think is yet to come. Have a great rest of your day. Happy Thanksgiving. We'll see you back here tomorrow.